Avi had seen a movie that I was in and thought that I would be right for Jericho, which probably the movie I made couldn't have been almost the exact opposite. I mean, I played this kind of an all-American guy playing a general manager of the Cleveland Browns, and my hair is kind of blonde, and I kind of, kind of looked the part of, maybe even a former athlete. And I heard that he said, "That's who I want. That's who I want for Jericho." And I thought, well, maybe Avi's lost. Maybe Avi has lost it. How could I, But he saw something in whatever he saw, and there's been times that we were, I guess, flirted with each other in terms of movies that he was doing, and I was never able to do one. And why he would think I was right for this, I didn't know until I finally cut my hair and found my voice for it. I came to the set. I came to London with long hair and a big, long beard. And in just the way movies are these days, we were not able to shoot in order. And so a day before I had to shoot, I had to come away with a real severe look. And no one knew what it was going to look like. No one knew what to expect. And everyone basically trusted, I think, me and the director to go into the makeup trailer and come out with this look. And this wasn't on the books, this wasn't planned, and it was kind of a nervous moment because how Jericho looks would almost define how he acts. It was humorous, it had a level of being touching, although it was on the surface a violent movie. But those elements kind of bled out, and I'm always attracted to things when they are multi-layered. And yeah, this is an action movie, and Ariel is, going to direct that. But he also responded very much to the confusion that my character is brought into the movie with. I'm certainly brought in with my past, and that suddenly that's all scrambled up inside me. So, I read the movie, but there was no way I was going to actually be able to do it because I had made a movie called Black and White. I'm not sure what the title that's now going to end up being, but I had to really be available for that movie because it was a movie I had paid for myself. No one wanted to make it. It was a movie that dealt with racism. And because I paid for it, I needed to be available. And at a certain point, I was not going to be able to do this movie simply because I had to be available to do that. It was the only right thing. So this was a very nice movie, and I thought for sure I was going to miss it because I couldn't do anything about it. And they waited and they watched, and I was just as honest as I could be about what my schedule was. And they were equally honest. And at the end of the day, my schedule, while it didn't exactly loosen up completely, a window of opportunity created itself. And both parties, myself, the director who has been so supportive of me, and Avi, we stepped through that window of opportunity and made that movie. And when we find him, he's in prison, and that's been a majority of his life, given that there was an injury he suffered as a child, and it's kind of rendered him kind of not quite a sociopath, but he just doesn't know that he does wrong completely, and he reacts to things, sometimes violently, sometimes humorously. And the violence in his life has landed him in jail to the point where, he's not even wanted to be around the general population because it's very kind of unpredictable. He's not a bully person, but he responds badly. Like the gangs that are within the prison, want to recruit him. And he doesn't have any affinity for that. He's not even sure what that's about. So the group that he probably should be with, he may look the part, but he doesn't feel the part. And he can't be made to feel things. He can't be made to feel loyalties. He can't be made to feel those things because those aren't within him. He's not even capable of it. So he's a very untrustworthy person to those who need to know how he's going to react in any given situation. Part of the plot is that a very vital piece of information that would be important to stopping a catastrophic moment is lost, and it's lost in the name of Bill Pope, of Ryan Reynolds, and with him, like dead men go to the grave with their secrets, and that's the way it used to be. But as we unlock the secrets of the mind, as science continues to progress, and we know that they're messing constantly, or they're on the verge of transferring memory of one person to another, because of almost international. The stakes are so high that if they can do that, they'll do it. Stem cell is advancing things, and there's a big, moral dilemma about, is that correct? And taking someone's memory to maybe save the world, which we like to do in Hollywood sometimes, is try to save the world. What happens is I become a perfect candidate, if you will, for this operation because of an injury I suffered a long time ago as a child. The problem is my history is such that it makes me not a perfect candidate for them, because how are they going to control this individual when he's loose on the street? And I think probably some of the humor is how he actually operates on the street. But he is now going back and forth between who he was to who this person that they put in him. And it's kind of on a short fuse. We don't know how long that's going to last. And it manifests itself in language. He talks sometimes in things that confuses him, even foreign languages. He'll flirt with them and not be sure where that came from. And he'll understand money, things that maybe his love of money is a driving force in him, but he maybe understands math in a way that he never understood before. He understands place and senses that he's never experienced before, and somehow he can navigate his way in either a hostile environment or a very domestic environment and know exactly where he is without knowing why he should know that. So there's a high level of confusion both for the audience and in me trying to explain it. I just have to try to play that. It's trying to find his voice and trying to find his level of violence, unpredictable violence, and his humor. And then I had to find out when I thought Bill Pope was talking in my head and when Jericho was talking. And, how do you manifest that? I mean, I don't know. I knew that was the job. I knew that that's what I would have to do, and I wasn't absolutely certain how I was going to do it. I didn't have 3 months to prepare for Broadway and work it out. Didn't have one day to work it out. I was literally, the first scene, I'm actually looking at myself in a mirror and seeing Bill Pope. And so the first thing I did was I put my hand up and blocked my face because it wasn't something that I wanted to see. It was something that I needed to go away. And so the way movies work these days, I had to find this character on the run. Research the idea of what the operation would look like, because the most difficult thing with movies is getting the audience to buy in that this is really possible, that they're actually really doing this. And so they are experimenting with this very thing. And so Ariel was a really good steward of this idea about researching this. And so I became very privy to how this operation would take place. The difference was the operation takes place really in not ideal situations under a timeline that one would never do it. And they're careless with me as a person. And when they don't think that the experiment is going to take, I become really expendable to them. And that's hurtful to Frank's character, Tommy Lee's character. It's hurtful to him because it's an experiment that maybe wasn't given time to, number one, take, and number one, to even administrate an experiment like that. But he is a scientist at heart, and so, he never said, no, you can't do it. Morally, he may have been, but I think when you have a life's work behind you, you're willing to let things fly a little bit. And he did. He let them fly inside me. There wasn't a lot he could do about it, but you can't say that he wasn't interested in the outcome. So his hands aren't completely clean. For me, the number one thing was that operation. Did it have a level of authenticity that was going to take place in order to try to achieve this? And so it's kind of gruesome, and it's highly technical, and it's really fast. And so I researched the idea of the medical procedure. The relationship that exists between men and women married, when the jobs of the men are a little bit secret, when the jobs are not things that are brought home, those things, we know that those relationships are hard to maintain, and we know that they're broken in a lot of instances. And when we come into this movie, we're dealing with a relationship that's broken. We're dealing with a relationship of a man who has to work covertly in his life, and it's how he feeds his family. But there is always the moment in time where those jobs are for real. They're dangerous, and sometimes they end. And Ryan Reynolds was he's a great young leading man, and to see him wiped out in the first 15 pages was important. Somebody that you think is maybe going to travel through the movie doesn't. And that can make for good movie going, because it means everybody's vulnerable. But Gal, his wife, was someone that I was unaware of, and you just don't know what you're going to run into on a set. You don't know, and so many times it can be an average experience, a good experience, or a great one, and it was a great one for her. She was a good scene partner, and we were thrown into probably one of our roughest scenes on the very first day. I had to, I had to assault her. And there's I showed up on the set with a shaved head and a stitches about 4 inches in my back. And next thing I know, I've got my hand over her mouth, and I'm taping her up. And, but she was prepared, and she helped me. And, she brought a femininity to a movie that's very hard and cold and brutal. And she's just a mom who loves her child, and so she's in the middle of her own husband's life, and now this kind of events that are unfolding. And a man is suddenly in her house, and he doesn't look like her husband, but he is too familiar with her. And she's, I think, scared by it. I think she's revolted by it. And I think her curiosity actually gets the better of her, emotional curiosity, because at a certain moment, the connection with her ex-husband that she never got really closure, the only person that could maybe even offer her a window into that is me. And I'm kind of half a monster a little bit. I never had scenes with Gary personally. He's just somebody that I really have admired for a long time. A very ferocious, a very nuanced actor. I mean, he's one of those, that seems like Britain just has this kind of long line of great actors, and Gary is, it's hard to know, who the best is on that list, but, if his name's not on it, then it's not a good list. Right, and Tommy, represents, a lot of America in a way. He's been doing this a long time, and he's succeeded, and really taken on a very different role for himself. Tommy is thought of as somebody who's going to start fights and finish them, and you come to expect that. And in this movie, he really plays against type, a doctor who's kind of his whole life is really maybe at a certain moment in his own mind is not adding up, and I'm really his monkey, if you will. You know, and Gary has I think Tommy has really fallen into his role and not relied on tricks, you know, to let people know he really is strong. He's playing a person that's you know, highly intelligent and sees his dream being lost, sees his dream being kicked around, and is ultimately threatened. And he plays that. And so we needed that. We didn't need Tommy to be the Tommy we see in a lot of movies. We needed Tommy to, if he was going to play Franks, to play this character that is more measured and in certain instances, not a person whose first reaction is to fight back. You don't think of calling London exotic, but it's exotic to the rest of the world when you realize just how put together it is, and the journey that this country has had over thousands of years. To, you know, it's a metropolitan, but it's also a place of castles. You know, it's a highly civilized you know, place, government. You know, yet, you know, also one of the bloodiest countries, you know, that has ever ruled. You know, it's like Rome. It's like England. Not very many countries had the wherewithal to take on the whole world and actually think they could, you know. And it has, it's a unique city, and it's visual, and you can't cross a bridge without almost having your breath taken away, morning, noon, or night, the way the lights are at night, or the way the fog rolls in, or just what's juxtaposed against the skyline. You know, you can have this old building and then a Ferris wheel, and it works. You can have an old castle and then a bridge that couldn't possibly have been built 300 or 400 years ago, and there this bridge stands, and it works. Well, he was a really big supporter of me, and I don't make this film unless Ariel wants it. And I don't make the film unless the director wants me. And even so, all those other things that came into play that I might not be able to do it, he didn't move off me. I mean, sometimes there's people who are tour directors who go, I want you, I want you, I want you. And then when they can't get you, they cast somebody that has nothing to do with your own essence. A lot of times you go, okay, I didn't get the part. Who got the part? And then you hear who it is and you go, yeah, that makes sense. Who got that? And then sometimes you go, wait a second. You thought I was the right guy, and when you couldn't get me, this guy became the right guy? So Ariel did not move off me. And I tell you, most directors would have, because he went through almost a 2-month period where he wouldn't do the movie with anybody else. And I kept wanting to look in the mirror like, why? What are you talking about? Me? Playing Jericho? I'm a cowboy. You know, I play baseball. You know, I do that stuff. It's not that I haven't played, I played serial killer, you know, I played, but I just thought there's a lot of guys that could play Jericho, but not for Ariel. And that made me respond to him even more as a person. You always want people to feel like they got their money's worth because they take that time to go. The big screen is still important to a lot of people. Not everybody's going to be able to get there. So all the decisions we make are important, not only for the ones that will go see it on a big screen, but also the level of detail and nuance that somebody will watch privately and like maybe return to the movie. You know, that's what I always think is a successful movie, is a movie that is one that's willing to be passed on. You know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. That's a successful movie. We have a tendency to measure them on their opening weekend, and then that's how they're measured now. But that's not how I measure them. So my hope is, can this movie travel through time? Will Ariel surprise me? Because it's a movie for sure. It's got a start, middle, and an end. Will he bring something to this that maybe somebody else wouldn't? Will there be an Ariel energy that becomes a signature, a little signature director, that suddenly we begin to see Ariel as he continues to grow as a director, that this film will stand nicely, both in how it was received commercially and in both how he feels about it later on in his career looking back.